Hi, this is Willie, and thanks again for watching another one of my beginner videos. You know, the first time that I saw a collective pitch helicopter performing 3D maneuvers like that, the only thing I could say was, wow! I never knew a remote control helicopter could perform like that. Well, before you get all excited, I am not about to show you how to perform those maneuvers. But what I would like to do is take you on a journey. And that journey is how I started flying helicopters just a couple of months ago. In fact, this is the helicopter that I started off with, the Blade 120 SR. It's a fixed pitch helicopter. And I have progressed to the point now where I'm actually flying the Blade 450X, which is a totally maneuverable helicopter. So how did I get there? Well, it took a little bit of practice and a little bit of time, but that's exactly what I want to show you on this particular video. Is how to start from a fixed pitch helicopter and go to a collective pitch helicopter. Now, there are two trains of thoughts when it comes to learning how to fly collective pitch helicopters. The first one is that the larger helicopters are easier to fly, and since eventually you will be using them to do the 3D maneuvers that you've seen, you might as well just go ahead and start off learning how to fly them first. The second train of thought is that you should start off with a smaller micro collective pitch helicopter. That way you can learn how to fly the helicopter as best you can, and then later on move up to the larger 450 size helicopters. So this video is about one thing, and that is I want to show you how I started from this little guy, and just a matter of months I graduated up to flying the larger 450 collective pitch helicopters. So let's just dive right into the video and you can get an idea of how this journey started. Oh, and by the way, if you're watching tons and tons of videos on the Nano performing 3D maneuvers in small office spaces and places where it's impossible to fly, stop. The only thing those videos will do for you, like they did for me, is to make you depressed and give you the impression you will never learn how to fly a collective pitch helicopter, especially the Nano. So my advice to you is no more videos on the Nano. This is the one that you need to watch. Okay, so just why did I select the Nano CPX over all the other micro helicopters that are out there? Well, one of the reasons is that after learning how to fly on the Blade 120 SR, I wanted to stay within the Blade product line. To me, Horizon Hobby is a great retailer of Blade products, and they have an excellent reputation and customer service track record. Now, within their micro collective pitch helicopter category, there was the Nano CPX, Blade 130X, and the MCPX. So, which one do you choose? Well, in the final analysis, I based my purchasing decision on these 4 key points. 1, the size. 2, where it can be flown. 3, how much are repairs. And 4, the cost. Let's look at size first. Now, of the 3 helicopters, the 130X came in as the largest, with the Nano and the MCPX being about the same size. Second, all of the models can be flown outdoors in light wind. Thirdly, although the 130X parts for repair cost a few dollars more, all of the helicopter parts were really about the same price. Cost. This was the largest disparity and where I based my final decision. Now, I purchased my Nano for $99, and at the time the Blade 130 was retailing for $249, and the MCPX was retailing for about $229. Now, I know from experience that any model that's going to be used for training purposes is going to suffer some crash damage. Therefore, at the price of 1 Nano, I figure I could purchase at least 2.5 Nanos for the price of one of the other helicopters. Now, to me, that was a no-brainer. However, the other reason I selected the Nano is because it had the reputation of being very difficult to see in flight, and also is supposed to be a little bit squirrely when it comes to flying it. So I figured if I could learn how to fly it, then I would have no difficulty later on flying the larger 450 size helicopters. So now that you know why I selected the Nano, let's get into the basics of collective pitch flying. Okay, the parts to the helicopter is pretty simple. Basically, you will have a canopy that can be removed. The next item that you will see on the helicopter is the battery compartment, and this is located below the main chassis. The other item is, of course, the frame itself. Now, it's a very light frame, however, it's put together pretty good. One of the problems, of course, is the tail boom made out of carbon fiber. And the last item that you will see on the helicopter will be the rotor blades that sit on top. I'm not going to go into detail about the information inside of the instruction manual, but if you haven't flown collective pitch helicopters before, it would be a good idea if you reviewed the information that's posted there. One of the reasons that you do want to review the instruction manual is that if you have a computerized transmitter, the settings for your particular transmitter is listed. However, I found out that for me they were just a little bit too much, so I'm going to be giving you instructions on how to program your transmitter in what I call a tame situation. This will allow you to fly the Nano right out of the box without too much difficulty. If you were to ask me what was the most important thing in flying collective pitch helicopters, I would say safety is the answer. And throttle hold is the device that will ensure that you'll be safe and not incur any injury to yourself or damage to your helicopter. So make sure that you check out the complete video that I've done on this subject, because I think it's so important that you have fun, but you also fly safely. Okay, so let's take a look at the items that you need in order to fly your Nano. The first thing on the list are batteries, and I suggest that you have at least 5. This will give you sufficient time to practice and advance in your skills and allow you to move on to the next level. If you haven't used Lipo batteries before, then I've put together a document for you so that you can understand everything there is about charging them and using them. Simply email me or click on the link. Batteries are not all the same, and even though you're going to get one that comes with the Nano, I do want to suggest the battery that you see on the screen. I've had nothing but success with it, and I think you'll find the same results if you buy it too. With so many batteries around, there's a possibility that you could use the same battery twice. So make sure that you number each battery so that you won't mistakenly pick up one and use it again for a second flight. Okay, let's talk about chargers. You're going to get one with the Nano, but let's be real, it is not a very good charger, so I recommend that you do buy a better charger. I've also discovered that the battery sometimes will actually bend and break while you're trying to insert it in the one that comes with it. So make sure you invest in a good charger. The one on the screen is the one that I use. It has adapters that can fit just about any battery that you're going to run into. I mentioned earlier how safety is a very important key in flying remote control helicopters. And so when you're charging your batteries, I always use a safety pouch. This will make sure that there are no fires that are created by charging the Lipo batteries. Another accessory that I want to recommend to you is the 6X Pico adapter. You will get 6 connections that will allow you to charge up to 6 batteries at one time, as compared to one that you will be able to charge with the stock charger that comes with the Nano. Okay, that does it for the basics. Let's dive into some modifications. Okay, the first modification that we're going to talk about is the modification for the canopy. Now, when I was flying the Nano, I did have a few crashes, and as you can see from the image on the screen, the canopy is one of the objects that's going to take a lot of damage. Now, I measured the thickness of the canopy on the Nano and come to discover that it is about 8 millimeters in thickness. However, the Blade 120 SR canopy comes in at about 30 millimeters. So what I decided to do was beef up the interior part of the canopy by using hinge tape. So what I like to do right now is show you just what I use for that particular modification. It involves a pair of tweezers, a pair of scissors, and simply cut small strips of hinge tape and apply them to the inside of the canopy. This will fortify it and make it a little bit stronger. The next modification that we're going to do is to tighten up the blades. When you unbox your Nano, you'll probably discover that the blades are a little bit on the floppy side. So what you want to do is take the screwdriver that's provided and tighten up the screw on each spindle so that they are a little bit tighter. Once you've done this, take the helicopter and tilt it on its side and see if the blades do flop down. You want to make sure that they are loose in case of an accident. The final modification is personal, but I highly recommend that you change the rotor and the tail blades on your Nano. You'll discover that while you're flying it, you'll be able to see its orientation a whole lot better than using the original blades that come with the helicopter. That concludes this section on modifications. Okay, let's talk about the necessary parts you're going to need for repairs. Now, basically, there are three things that I suggest. One is you should have a tail boom, and they cost about $15 to $16 because these tail booms are pretty fragile. They are made out of carbon fiber. However, the problem is that in order to get the wiring that goes to the control board through the tail boom, it's hollow. So it's very easy to break this. In fact, the very same day that I got my Nano, I sustained a crash where it crashed actually into me and fell to the floor. And the first thing that broke was the tail boom. So I was out of business for a while until I put together a patch remedy that included me CA gluing a rod to the tail boom. Eventually I ended up buying a new tail boom, and that solved the whole problem. So you're looking at a spare one here. The next thing you're going to need is a canopy. In fact, I should even say you need that first before you need a tail boom, because I found out that during most of the crashes that I had, the first thing that would happen is that the canopy would get these hairline cracks. And of course, extra blades. They come with the Nano, but I'm showing you these blades for the simple fact that they are no longer on the blade. Because I took them off and put on the orange colored ones that you see. And for flying, I can suggest that you do change the blades out. The helicopter is so small and it's so fast, and just by adding these colored blades, you're going to see that the visibility of being able to know what type of orientation you have on the helicopter. So that's why you see the blades down here. Okay, it's virtually impossible to fly the Blade Nano without at least running into a little bit of troubles and having a crash or two. So what I want to point out is one of the issues that I discovered when I was flying the Nano and crashing it, unfortunately, and that happens to be with the swash plate. I'm going to point out what will happen to you, and basically what's going to happen, there's going to be a separation between the swash plate right about here. You can see right now that this is dislocated. And this occurred on the last flight that I had with this, so in order to show you that there will be a little bit of damage sometimes to the helicopter. And basically right now this is the one that I'm experiencing the most, is the separation of the swash plate. And basically all you have to do is take a pair of tweezers and put it back together, and I'll show you how to do that. So in order to fix this problem, basically all we're going to do is just take a pair of tweezers, and we're going to come right about here and just squeeze that back down just like that. And that's just how easy it is to fix this problem. Now every time I go out flying, I do have a pair of tweezers with me, and it's just a basic pair of tweezers, and it'll just save you from having to stop flying that day and go home and do a repair. So if this does happen to you right along here, just take a pair of tweezers, squeeze it back together, do a little test flight on it, and you're right back in the air, no problem. Nano fixed, ready to go.
Okay, we've come to the part that you've been waiting for, and that is how to fly the Nano CPX. Well, before we get into that, I want to give you a key important point that I found out before I started flying the Nano, and that is how to use a flight simulator to improve your skills in a very short span of time. So many beginning pilots make this terrible mistake by going out and purchasing a helicopter and crashing it on the very first flight. But it doesn't have to be that way. In fact, one way that you can assure yourself of getting a really good start is to invest a little bit of money into a flight simulator. One of the nice features about using a flight simulator is that there is no time limit as to how long you can fly. By reason, the average battery is going to last you only about 4 to 6 minutes. So you can see that you'll have more practice time by using a flight simulator. You can also practice on the simulator the flight patterns that I'll be giving you during the flight school portion of this video. So take advantage of a flight simulator. It'll save you from crashing your helicopter and give you more opportunity to sharpen your skills within a very short span of time. Another suggestion I want to make in using the flight simulator is to use a larger helicopter for training. In this example, I'm using the Blade 450X. You'll find that it's a little bit easier to see the helicopter, and its response will be a little bit better than flying the Nano. Okay, the first hot tip I want to share with you is that the first flight of the day should be a hover stability check. Basically, you're looking for any mechanical problems that the helicopter might have since the last flight. The other reason that you want to make this a hover flight is that you want to make sure that the trim settings are proper and that the helicopter is flying as best that it can. Now, the next tip that I'm going to share with you is not only going to test your ability to fly the helicopter, but it's also going to test your nerves and give you an opportunity to improve your collective pitch flying skills within a matter of a couple of days. What this technique involves is test flying the flight envelope of the helicopter with aggressive cyclic maneuvers. The best way that I can show you this technique is to go to the flight simulator and show you some footage of how I've done this. Then I'll show you how I've taken that same technique and flown it with the Nano CPX. What I discovered about this technique is that it will give you the confidence to be able to correct any unusual attitude that the helicopter might be in, thereby avoiding a crash. The second benefit that I found from this technique is that it has a way of calming your nerves and slowing things down so that your brain can analyze what's going on and you make the correct inputs to keep the helicopter flying safely and so that it doesn't cause personal injury or crash. As we near this section on flying the Nano, your first collective pitch helicopter, I want to caution you on one thing, and that is, just because you've come from a coaxial or a fixed pitch helicopter Don't think that you're just going to crank this baby up and take off and fly it. Believe it or not, you really need to go back to flight school again. So to help you with that, I'm going to list for you a couple of maneuvers that I did the entire time that I was practicing, and with a sufficient supply of batteries, make sure that you spend the time on each maneuver until you have mastered it. I promise that if you practice these maneuvers, your skill level will excel much quicker than just flying around in circles. Well, to wrap up this video on a beginner's introduction to collective pitch flying, I would like to give a couple of pros and cons as to why I think the Nano CPX is an excellent beginner's model. In this presentation, I've tried to give you as much information as I could about how I went about learning how to fly collective pitch helicopters, and I've also tried to keep it simple and to the point. So don't be afraid to take the challenge of learning how to fly a collective pitch helicopter. It's a lot of fun. You'll learn a lot about yourself, and the helicopter will teach you more than you can expect.